The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. The race paradox. The unconscious illusion of inclusion by Dr. Carlton Brown. Scientific racism. Scientific racism. In 1619, when the first enslaved people were brought to what would become the Caribbean islands and United States, justification for their enslavement were brought here too. In the 400 years since then, as those enslaved and their descendants have continued to call this America and Caribbean islands home, the justification for their abuse and mistreatment has stayed with white America and white Britain as well. Scientific racism. German and English scientist Bernhard Veron, born 1622, died 1650, and John Ray, born 1627, died 1705, classified human populations into categories according to stature, shape, food habits, and skin color, along with any other distinguishing characteristics. Ray was also the first person to produce a biological definition of species. Scientific racism ideas were being formulated during the reign in Germany of Ferdinand II and Ferdinand III. Here in Britain, during the reign of James I of England and William VI of Britain. False. It's false. It's a lie. It's a lie. Contemporary scientific consensus agrees that race has no biological basis. It is a false concept. It's a lie. False. It's false. It's a lie. False. It's a lie. It's false. It's a lie. The British Empire, the British monarchy and their aristocracy decided to build an empire for several reasons, and these included to gain more money, to gain more power, to spread Christianity. The indigenous people in the new colonies were presented to the British public as uncivilized because their way of living was different from that of the peoples in Europe. This meant people began to believe that the British should continue to grow their empire, to bring civilization to these places, even by violence and force. The tactics used include rape and pillage. There were also missionaries who believed it was their duty to travel to new countries and convert people to Christianity. 21st century Britain. The British monarchy and their aristocracy, the legacy of empire and colonialism pervades the British psyche. Britain is in the midst of great social change. However, too many institutions are managed by people unable to grow beyond their early lessons of British national superiority and right to suppress others. The race paradox, the unconscious illusion of inclusion. man on the screen is Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr., born August 17, 1887, died June 10th, 1940. Marcus Garvey was a Jamaican-born black nationalist and leader of the Pan-Africanist movement, which sought to unify and connect people of African descent worldwide. His famous sayings include, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." Life was meant to be lived, and curiosity must be kept alive. Even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from here. None but ourselves can free our minds. One person can make a difference, and everyone should try. Yes, yes, yes! The Motivator Show. Success is ours for the taking. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. Mixcloud too. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. The race paradox. The unconscious illusion of inclusion by Dr. Carlton Brown. Scientific racism. Scientific racism. In 1619, when the first enslaved people were brought to what would become the Caribbean islands and United States, justification for their enslavement were brought here too. In the 400 years since then, as those enslaved and their descendants have continued to call this America and Caribbean islands home, the justification for their abuse and mistreatment has stayed with white America and white Britain as well. Scientific racism. German and English scientist Bernhard Veron, born 1622, died 1650, and John Ray, born 1627, died 1705, classified human populations into categories according to stature, shape, food habits, and skin color, along with any other distinguishing characteristics. Ray was also the first person to produce a biological definition of species. Scientific racism ideas were being formulated during the reign in Germany of Ferdinand II and Ferdinand III. Here in Britain, during the reign of James I of England and William VI of Britain. False. It's false. It's a lie. It's a lie. Contemporary scientific consensus agrees that race has no biological basis. It is a false concept. It's a lie. False. It's false. It's a lie. False. It's a lie. It's false. It's a lie. The British Empire, the British monarchy and their aristocracy decided to build an empire for several reasons, and these included to gain more money, to gain more power, to spread Christianity. The indigenous people in the new colonies were presented to the British public as uncivilized because their way of living was different from that of the peoples in Europe. This meant people began to believe that the British should continue to grow their empire, to bring civilization to these places, even by violence and force. The tactics used include rape and pillage. There were also missionaries who believed it was their duty to travel to new countries and convert people to Christianity. 21st century Britain, the British monarchy and their aristocracy, the legacy of empire and colonialism pervades the British psyche. Britain is in the midst of great social change. However, too many institutions are managed by people unable to grow beyond their early lessons of British national superiority and right to suppress others. The race paradox, the unconscious illusion of inclusion. The man on the screen is Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr., born August 17, 1887, died June 10, 1940. Marcus Garvey was a Jamaican-born black nationalist and leader of the Pan-Africanist movement, which sought to unify and connect people of African descent worldwide. His famous sayings include, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." Life was meant to be lived, and curiosity must be kept alive. Even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from here. None but ourselves can free our minds. One person can make a difference, and everyone should try. Yes, yes, yes! The Motivator Show. Success is ours for the taking. Subscribe to our YouTube channel It's free. Press the like button and don't forget to leave a comment. We are also on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us there too. Mixcloud too. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And how are you this fine morning? This is the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. How are you feeling, people? How are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling fantastic. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is to be another inspirational podcast. We're going to whack your feet right off your feet. That's where you're going to go. You'll be inspired, motivated to do better for yourself, your families, your friends, your networks, your wider community. Watch this space. You got to watch this space. And I'm feeling even better still. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. As I say, this is going to be a truly inspirational podcast. The purpose of these podcasts are clear, both to inspire, to motivate, so you do better for yourself, your family, your friends, and your network. And don't let anyone knock you down. We're here, if you are, to pick you up. And if you are up, to pick you up even higher and higher still. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me go right into this because it's going to be truly inspirational. Firstly, of course, let me first of all just say this to you all. That this podcast goes out on many platforms and the number of platforms will expand over time. We just need to get the technical details right so that you have high quality transmissions at all times. But I'll put it on the screen just so that you all remember where we can be found. And those of you who are not sure where to find us or who want to recommend to your friends, your families and others, here you are. On the screen, there you are. Now then, we transmit live via YouTube, as you all know. Those who are on YouTube or will know it, you can find us on The Motivator Show. We transmit live via Facebook, again under The Motivator Show. We transmit live via Mixcloud, again under The Motivator Show. Then excerpts go out via Instagram and TikTok under the same brand name. So remember, share the messages, share the links with your families, your friends, your networks, and beyond. We'll be most grateful if you do so. It'll be fantastic if you do so. And we will in future broadcasts transmit via digital radio. Watch this space. It's all going to be good. We're growing. We are not stoppable. You tell them we are not stoppable because the messages are resonating with the vast majority of our audience. In fact, let me put this back on the screen one more time. I did want to show you where we are. On YouTube, we want to set ourselves a target to secure 10,000 subscribers. So if you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, and I noticed that more than 95% or more of you have not yet subscribed yet, subscribe. There's no cost. It's simply an affirmation. It enables the YouTube algorithm to identify this as being a podcast to recommend to other millions of those of people who are on YouTube right now. And same applies to Facebook. If you're on Facebook and you haven't subscribed, please follow us on Facebook too, or indeed Mixcloud as another alternative. Excerpts, I say, will go out via Instagram and TikTok. Other platforms will come, but let's aim to expand treble the YouTube following. Let's do that. And we'll go far. And I can assure you it will be worthwhile. Recommend us to your family, your friends, your network, and beyond. We are going for expansion, continuous expansion. Standing still, sitting still is not an option. You tell them it's not an option. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But before I go on, I just want to remind you of our last transmission. Weren't they fantastic? They are veterans, our heroes, yeah? Can we not give appreciation for that remarkable man, Zach Robinson? Yeah, Zach Robinson, who really does represent in so many ways the vigor, the vitality, the energy, the unmitigated resoluteness of peoples of African ascent, if you like. Yeah, okay. I know all peoples are great, don't misunderstand. But I think, and I hope you would agree with me, he demonstrated a tenacity, a determination when involved inside a hostile environment, both to survive and to thrive. I take my hat off, I was wearing a hat off to Zach Robinson, of course, of the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. And of course, their significance is, of course, it does allude to the topic for today's show, okay? That is that many thousands of Africans from the so-called British colonies, yeah, heard the call for war, yeah? War against the Nazis, the fascists, yeah? The racists, if you like, yeah? And they heard the call despite the fact they were living under a tyranny themselves. But they understood this particular tyranny here in Europe, yeah, if allowed to flourish, will be bad for humanity, all peoples that make up humanities. Mm-hmm. So they heard the call, and they came out in their thousands and fought on the front, yeah? Fought on the front. And far too many died on the front, dying for their families, for Britain, for those countries fighting against that type of fascism. Mm-hmm. In the First World War and the Second World War. And of course, one of those veterans of the World Wars eventually became a national hero of the wonderful island, if I may say so, of Jamaica. Yeah, get it right, Norman Manley. Yeah, a remarkable human being. A remarkable human being. And we had a flavour of his life on our last podcast. But I want to say an absolute rah and approval to those leadership and supporters of the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust, who are looking out for our heroes and heroines, yeah? And long may their work continue. Their next outing will be tomorrow at the Cenotaph here in London, to walk by the Cenotaph to remember those and honour those fallen heroes and heroines who fought for freedom, at least a version of freedom for those gentlemen and women at the time. I pause so you absorb the information. I want us to appreciate them as people, as men and women of stature. People that you can look up to, examples of why these shows, these podcasts are so important. And long may their work continue. Honour and respect to you all. Honour and respect to you all. Okay. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. And later on, if you want to make contact with them, I'll put some details on the screen in a moment. Okay, so you have it handy. But what's important, that you all feel able to honour the fallen heroes tomorrow on Remembrance Sunday. Oh yeah, Remembrance Sunday. Long may it continue so. Long may it continue. Honour and respect. Honour and respect. I also now want to move on and give focus to where this show and its principles are residing. Okay. I know that for all of us, there's ups and downs, challenges, and we take them on with vigor. Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. But what's important here is that not only are you taking on those challenges, that you remember that you're never alone. Okay, so I want to give a shout out and publicity to a few organisations who are doing excellent works in the community. Okay, and the first organisation I would point to, and many of you will recognise why I point to this, because if there's no higher honour than to support and prepare young people for adulthood, to take on the leadership of your communities, of our communities, our societies. Okay. So I want to commend to you the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools. Okay. It's called Black Supplementary Schools. Of course, these are after school projects or projects occurs on a weekend, okay, or a particular day of the week. But they're designed to help and support young people's academic, social, spiritual development. Ensure they become upstanding men and women, hopefully husband and wives, yeah, good parents to their children. So what we need is for adults to rally together and develop and extend those support mechanisms. The National Association of Black Supplementary Schools is such an organisation where if you manage such an organisation, you ensure it is registered, it's listed as an organisation that a parent or a guardian can find you. Their website address is www.nabss.org.uk or email info@nabss.org.uk, or you can speak to the inspired brother there who manages the website on 07958 348 558. I commend the National Association of Black Supplementary School website to you as a vital resource within the community tiers. Okay, there you are. And I trust that you will give them your support. Okay. Another organisation I want to give light to, and one that you recall we had here on the Motivator Show. Okay, I want to give light, of course, to the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic, based at 58 Bank Street in the West Midlands, postcode WV148PD, those who are affected by the Windrush scandal. Okay, so some of you have been affected, and you've gone through the process, gained your right to stay, as you always had that right to stay, and of course, you experienced severe financial damage. You're entitled to compensation. Contact the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic as an outstanding organisation who gives the support that you require. Their email address, it's info@windrushlegaladviceclinic.com. Yep, it's as simple as that. There's no spaces. windrushlegaladviceclinic.com. info@windrushlegaladviceclinic.com. Telephone number, it's 01902 382 542. I commend this organisation to you as an organisation involved in vital work. They were here only a few months ago, but I should get them back again. But they are an example of the community rallying together to defend its interest. Vital piece of work. I commend them to you. There's another organisation I wish to commend to you, is again involved in vital work that I must say we all should give support to. And many of you will recall, in the Caribbean, right at the very beginning of the hurricane season, what what typically happens that there are hurricanes, but they're of the Category 1, Category 2, possibly Category 3 style. But in this case, right at the beginning of the hurricane season, there was a Category 5 hurricane. In other words, a hurricane in which the winds were potentially above 100 miles an hour. Highly destructive winds. Yes, it struck the Caribbean and particularly affected the islands of Antigua and Jamaica. Okay. So an organization that is involved in supporting those who to this day are living in huts, living in poverty, schools damaged as a result of this hurricane. And of course, they rely upon people overseas in the diaspora, as it were, to give them support so they can rebuild their lives. So I'm going to commend to you, and let's put it up on the screen. There you are, the PNP UK, okay, who are involved in raising money for the Hurricane Beryl Disaster Relief Fund. Okay, they will be in this studio in the not too distant future to account for how these resources have been spent. Okay. Vital, important work. What the people locally need are, of course, those basic things that we take for granted. Okay. They need non-perishable foods, bed kits, sheets and pillows, children, adult diapers, tarpaulin, zinc, and building materials. A lot has already gone into that area, that they need more. They need that support. We must not forget them. In Jamaica, particularly the parishes of St. Elizabeth and Manchester was affected. And you see, some of the pictures I've seen are quite devastating, emotionally moving. If you can make a donation, here we go. You can send it to the PNP UK. It's NatWest Bank, sort code 600802, account number 298-61233. And in the reference, please note DRF Beryl, in other words, Disaster Relief Fund Beryl, so it's clear of its intent. I commend PNP UK to you, and I hope that you are able to give, if it's only a small, if thousands of us give small amounts, that will make all the difference. I commend this particular effort to you. It will save lives. There you are. Oh, save lives. And lastly, the last organisation I'm going to give light to at this stage is, of course, an organisation I had here in these studios, a truly inspired organisation led by Doreen Robinson. Doreen Collins, get that right. She's truly an example of the best of us. Elevated minds, supporting young people, supporting young people. Doreen Sinclair McCollins. I want you to give that woman a call. If you are an institution and you want to identify an organization supporting young people, those who are furthest from education, those going through stress, or indeed those who are very capable, but yet will benefit from the support of a professional organization, this is the organization I would recommend. I do recommend such organizations lightly. Elevated Minds CIC. You can look them up if you like. Okay. Their email address is info@elevatedminds with an S coaching.com. You can see it on the screen. And their telephone number 0208 079 0703. Supporting young people is an absolute must, and this organization is center stage. I commend Elevated Mind CIC to you, and I'll put a link to the show that they were involved, and you I'm sure will share with me admiration for this group's dedication to the cause. Long may they continue. Well done. Well done. Oh yeah. Well done. Well done. Long may you see you. Long may they continue this great work. Long may they continue such great works. I now need to move on to the next phase of the podcast, and there are other announcements I'll make after my main interview. What I want to do now is return to a subject again of great concern. and that is indeed our health. Some of you will be aware I'm an elected official, and I see the official figures. They make for distressing reading. Levels of obesity in our community is off the charts. Levels of diabetes in our communities is off the charts. Levels of high blood pressure off the charts. Yeah, the levels of those in the communities who exercise is too low, dangerously low. With a consequence, there is a public health crisis throughout particularly the African heritage communities, whether from the continent of Africa, you live here, from the Caribbean, and you're living here, or indeed you're born here of African heritage. There is a health crisis. I know it's not in the national press regularly, it's not the headlines on the newspapers. I say often, reparations begins with self. We have got to communicate these messages within our communities. It is vital that we do so. And in doing so, we best serve our communities. I cannot understate how important this is. And what I'm really encouraged by is the numbers of you who've heard the messages. And I come across people, particularly people from African heritage, who come from different ethnicities right across the continent of Africa and the Caribbean, who come together in common aim and common purpose. And there's one such organization which is quite local, but I know there are others, and I'm so pleased, and I need you to send your videos so I can play your videos as well of you exercising. But one such organization I want to point to is the Countdown organization. They call themselves Countdown. I'm sure they counted down so the next time they exercise together. But here you are. I'll show you an example of them exercise together, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of education, regardless of religious affiliation, yeah? Oh my gosh, regardless of you're man or woman, yeah? If you're big or you're small, come together in common aim and common purpose, and long may this organization continue their great work. Here we are. Listen and watch the Countdown organization exercising together. This is what we need. More initiatives such as this one. There you go.
Cheese. Famous. Hello, 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 hello. Awe. 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 You get one life on leave, me self get one life on leave. Why we no go use am gladdy and enjoy the time? Palava no dey finish, time me no dey wait nobody. Now why are they try for always get am nice every day and night? This one way we all fend we safe, now nobody own. You want to eat with you much we go down you belly now you young. And the balance where you go die left now all the money on. So why for the greedy you say for? Now the motor car where you let buy 'em. If you see finance where you collect bill 'em, oh. You meet up woman where you let yanam. And if you let the man na for keep 'em, want them more. The food where you feel for eat na for eat 'em. That fine la pan where you let na for buy 'em. And tie 'em, oh. And if you baby love you back love 'em. But if you love them all now you not for left 'em. Want them more. Cause nobody know what's in tomorrow all. So every day of my life tear all. I fasting enjoyment stay go. Now for land for care for yourself. Nobody love you pass yourself. All man they fed for himself. Oh. Now why I know they allowed with the other man they panted me peace away. Me joy away, me smile away, oh no, make nobody take your peace away, me joy away, me smile away, oh no, alright. Every day, as you dey hustle, they work for the pay. They like na boku on a small you dey catch. Land for the loose body 110. No to money, no to gently. No money make motor man and brother. As long as you get waiting, you dey eat. Land for the loose body 110. This one way we all fail, we safe, now nobody own. You want to eat what you want, we go down your belly, now you young.
Watch them, huh? Exercising. Yeah.
So why for the greedy you say for? If the motor car where you let buy 'em. If you see if I say you call it deal 'em. You meet up woman where you let yanam. And if you let the man na for keep 'em.
Oh, look at that. Push up, push down. Huh? So much easier when you're doing together.
And if you baby love you back love 'em. But if you love them all now, you not for left 'em. Want them more. Cause nobody know what's in tomorrow all. So every day of my life they are all. A fasting enjoyment stay go. Now for land for care for yourself. Nobody love you past you yourself. All man they fed for himself. Oh. Now why I know they allowed with the other man they can't take me peace away. Me joy away. Me smile away. Oh no, make nobody take your peace away. Me joy away. Me smile away. Oh no.
Wow. You have to applaud them, huh? You have to applaud them. Why is that happening? Because they heard some vital messages that we were able to share with you and the rest of the world. Vital messages. And that was their response. But of course, the vital messages, I'm going to play them now. I was considering, but I will play them. I've had a few messages that I understand you want to hear it. Yeah. These are the messages that they heard and they responded to. They then come together in common aim and common purpose with a sincere effort to get fit and healthy. Yeah. So you can live long, healthy lives. Here are the inspired lifestyle messages. Watch and listen. Listen keenly. There we go. We ask you to consider. In fact, let me put the other one up. I think. Let me put the other one up for you. There we go. The Motivator Show. Success is ours for the taking. Lifestyle messages. We ask that you consider the amount of sugar and salt consumed each day. There is a direct causal link between the overconsumption of sugar and type 2 diabetes, prevalent particularly in the African heritage communities. It is estimated that more than 2 in 4 have either a diagnosed condition of diabetes or an undiagnosed condition of diabetes. Here in Britain, the NHS spends more than £26 billion treating people with diabetes, which is a condition for life. Too much salt in our diet disrupts the natural sodium balance in the body. This causes fluid retention, which increases the blood pressure exerted by the blood against the blood vessel walls, or high blood pressure. The potential impact of too much salt can include enlarged heart muscles, headaches, heart failure, high blood pressure, kidney disease, kidney stones, osteoporosis, stomach cancer, and strokes. Another lifetime condition. We ask that you consider the amount of carbohydrate consumed each day. Typically derived from wheat-based produce such as pasta and other related wheat-based products, and of course root vegetables such as potatoes and the yam. And yes, I did say yams. Excess carbohydrates intake places a large metabolic load on the body. When the body constantly has high levels of blood sugars to deal with over time, this leads to weight gain, poor metabolic health, and an increased risk of heart disease. We ask you to consider the amount of fat that you consume each day. On the screen, you can see raw meat. Clearly, the red meat is meat, but the white streaks you see in the meat is fat. Our bodies need healthy fat for energy and other functions. But too much saturated fat can cause cholesterol to build up in your arteries, in other words, our blood vessels. Saturated fat raise your LDL or bad cholesterol levels. This can increase your risk of heart disease and neurological strokes. Too much fat is linked to increased risk of obesity or fatness, coronary heart disease, and certain types of cancers, such as breast and colon cancers. On the screen, you see a partially blocked arteries, mainly made up of fatty acids and other ingredients mentioned previously. The blood is being forced through the partial blockage by the heart. Another consequence is, of course, increased hypertension or high blood pressure. Examples of starchy foods include potatoes, bread, pasta, cereals, and rice. Excessive consumption of starch, scientific studies have shown, may cause insulin resistance, in other words, diabetes, may cause skin irritation, many of us will recognize as eczema, may cause gastrointestinal irritation. Many of us will recognize these conditions. On the screen, you can see the examples of the consequences of our lifestyle. Excessive consumption of sugar and salt, carbohydrates, and fat and starch. You see the young lady and gentleman with the bloated shoulders, bloated chest, bloated abdomen, bloated thighs, and bloated bottoms, or buttocks in polite company. The consequence of our lifestyle. The prevalence of obesity amongst black women in the United Kingdom is significantly higher compared to the general population. Approximately 58% of black women in Britain are classified as obese. This rate is considerably higher than the average obesity rate for women across all ethnicities in the UK, which currently stands at between 30 to 32%. This is a public health emergency. The prevalence of obesity amongst black men in Britain is also notably high. Approximately 38% of black men in the UK are classified as obese. This rate is higher than the average obesity rate for men across all ethnicities in the UK, which is around 27 to 29%. This is a public health emergency. The experts recommend that we should eat fresh, untainted foods, including tomatoes and oranges, melons and beetroot, noriega and avocados, grapes and apples, lemons and cabbages, lettuce and cherries, bananas and cucumber, and pears and onions, sweet corn and pineapples, carrots and cauliflower, garlic and sweet pepper, lemons and many other fruits and vegetables, which are untainted and are good for you. The experts recommend that we should ensure that we consume between 2 to 3 litres of water per day. It does depend upon your height and your mass. You see on the screen a young man drinking his water, the young lady enjoying her water. The advice given to you about our lifestyle will not mean anything to you unless you exercise. To exercise for life. You see the young lady with her weights, pumping her weights. You see the mature gentleman running with his headphones in with a smile on his face. You see a young lady running up and down those stairs. Oh yeah, that is real exercise. You see the young man pushing up and down with his push-ups. This is exercise. Our bodies need exercise. It is important for us always to consider our mental and spiritual health. If you have concerns about your mental health, please seek out professional advice or speak out to those you most trust. I trust that they will seek out the right advice and support for you. And of course, as human beings, we are truly spiritual entities. It is important to speak to your spiritual advisors. I'll stop it there. I think you would agree. Those messages are vital messages. Throughout the communities, particularly in the African heritage communities, every other family, a person will have either diabetes or high blood pressure or be afflicted by obesity, fatness in other words. It is a public health emergency. Hear these messages. Seek out professional advice if in doubt. These messages are generalized messages. Yeah? They are generally true. Speak to your doctor, speak to the specialist, whoever you most trust. I urge you to do so. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Now we go on to the next phase of this show. This show, of course, will be marked by a person who's been on the Motivator show previously, but is a highly motivated human being, okay? Highly motivated. You understand why I say highly motivated quite soon, don't you worry, huh? But nevertheless, listen keenly. These shows, of course, are designed to inspire, to motivate you. I hope the information we've supplied so far is sufficiently rich in its quality that you are tempted to react, to act in response to the information shared thus far. But there's more to come, be assured. There is more to come. There is more to come. But I will just say this, though. I will just say this. What is important is that these messages are not in any way designed to denigrate, not in any way intended to shame. They're intended to encourage, to stimulate positive response, love and unity at all times. And any of you who attempt to do that, please, not in our name. Love and unity at all times, at all times. I now will start to infer the main purpose of today's show. Some of you would have seen the intro video, okay? And the intro video, of course, really does sort of set the tone, set the scene for today's show. And today's show, of course, will focus on, well, as the author would call it, the race paradox. Mm-hmm. And then there's an interesting strap line which it links to it, and I'll give you his name once he arrives, okay? And that's the unconscious illusion of inclusion. Examples. There are some really important institutions here in Britain which have been found wanting, okay, and have been judged by independent adjudication to be institutionally racist. Now, even though I use that term racist, as those of you who've been able to watch the intro video will also recognize that there are no such things as race. It is a false concept created by German and English scientists in order to put different peoples, in different parts of the world into categories. So they could create a hierarchy of people to put themselves as on the top, as it were. Yeah. Unfortunately, those concepts pervade Britain, much of the world, easy to say, today, such concepts. And they damage us as a species, because we are but one family. Yeah, we are one family. I've said on many occasions, there's a woman in China right now who I've never met, and our families have been apart for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years or more. But she and I could have a healthy human baby. Because we are one family. We are a single species. The concept of race is a false concept, but we still use the term racist to denote the behavior of one people against another, the exercise of power, typically an example of racist. But when my guests arrive, we can clarify this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to play part of the intro video, and then I'm going to get my guest into the studio, okay? But listen carefully to the intro video, because it provides a context, a summary of the interview to come. There we go. Let me play it now, and listen keenly. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. The Race Paradox. The unconscious illusion of inclusion. By Dr. Carlton Brown. Scientific racism. Scientific racism. In 1619, when the first enslaved people were brought to what would become the Caribbean islands and United States, justification for their enslavement were brought here too. In the 400 years since then, as those enslaved and their descendants have continued to call this America and Caribbean islands home, the justification for their abuse and mistreatment has stayed with white America and white Britain as well. Scientific racism. German and English scientist Bernhard Veron, born 1622, died 1650, and John Ray, born 1627, died 1705, classified human populations into categories according to stature, shape, food habits, and skin color, along with any other distinguishing characteristics. Ray was also the first person to produce a biological definition of species. Scientific racism ideas were being formulated during the reign in Germany of Ferdinand II and Ferdinand III. Here in Britain, during the reign of James I of England and William VI of Britain. False. It's false. It's a lie. It's a lie. Contemporary scientific consensus agrees that race has no biological basis. It is a false concept. It's a lie. False. It's false. It's a lie. False. It's a lie. It's false. It's a lie. Oh yeah, get it sound right. Oh yeah, it is a lie. But my guest has arrived. I'm going to bring him into the studio, and we're going to get this interview underway. We'll examine why it is a lie, but the fundamental sociological impact this lie has as on Britain, United States of America, the West, and beyond. It will truly be a thrilling interview. Now, let's see if I can bring him into the studio now. Let me get him there. He's now in my green room, as it were. I'm going to get him in a second. Let me now change my background scene. Try my new scene. Oh, there you are. I'm going to bring him in now. Let's try this. There we go. Let's see, does this work? Oh, does the technology work? Here we go. I'll bring him in. Hold on a second. Get him right in the right place. If I get this right. There we go. Oh, there we go. Get this right. We're going to get him in here a second. There we go. I'm going to get him in there now. He should be there, shouldn't he? Oh, maybe not then. Okay, we'll go back to my original setting, and I'm going to bring him in now. There you go. There we go. Oh, is he in now? Is he in now? Oh, he's not coming in. There we go. Oh, there we go. I'll try one more time. Yeah, there you are. I believe we've succeeded. I wanted to create a wonderful scene around you. Give me a moment. Let's see if it works this time. You know, now that you're smiling with all that vigor, that energy, I'm going to try one more time. Oh, come on. I prepared it just for you, Doctor. I prepared it just for you.
There you go, sir. There you go.
That's it. Oh, there you are. There you are. You're now in scene. There you are. Good morning to you, Dr. Carlton Brown. How are you feeling this fine morning?
Good morning and greetings, Martin. I'm very well, thank you, sir. I'm very
wonderful.
Very well. And thank you for the invitation to be here with you again.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I know you, and I know some of our listeners and viewers will know you. Can I just ask you, before I start the interview, just say a little bit about yourself, if I may call you Carlton. Just say a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where you come from? Get a little bit about your background, just so they can appreciate what I know about you and why you're here with us today. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, first and foremost, I'm a African, Jamaican Englishman. I think that's probably.
There you
go. I'm all of those things. You know, my parents are from Jamaica, and bless their souls. But of course, originally we're from Africa, and my DNA actually, strangely enough, is I'm 35% Nigerian, 34% Ghanaian, and 8% Congolese. There you go.
Interesting. Interesting.
So, but
Did
we're
you?
from Africa. We're from the continent. Go on.
Can I just check? Have you used AfricanAncestry.com to determine
Yes.
that? Absolutely. They're here only a few shows ago. Outstanding organization. Well done, you. A further affirmation, people. AfricanAncestry.com works. You can identify your direct lineage, where you come from on the continent. Yeah. And I hope you eventually will visit them, and hopefully they will welcome you with open arms, Dr. Carlton. Go ahead.
So, Martin, maybe I should greet you. I should greet you in Yoruba. So I should say Ekaro, or
Yes.
if I greet you in Tree, Etise.
Yeah.
Or
Good.
so we are Jamaican, so I say Wagwan.
Well, go on. Hiya.
So we're all of those,
Well
Martin.
done.
They're
Well
all
done.
of those. All
Well
good,
done.
of course. Good morning.
Good morning.
So yeah, my name is Dr. Carlton Brown. So who am I? I'm a consultant. I'm a visiting lecturer at university. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also an author of both academic and non-academic books as well. So
Mhm.
um, I've been doing that for, I don't know, past 20 odd years.
Mhm.
So that's this kind of work I've been doing. But I also host the UK Black Business Entrepreneur Conference in the UK,
Mhm. Yes,
which we've been
absolutely.
doing for the
Yes.
last few years,
Yes.
with the view of helping and supporting and guiding our community to create better opportunities and better wealth and better prospects in the entrepreneurial
Absolutely.
space. So that's
Yeah.
what we do. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. So, what motivates you, Carlton? What motivates you? Mhm.
Well, I don't know. I suppose I think you and I had a conversation 3 years ago, Martin, and I said to you, is,
Yes.
you know, when I grew up, I saw our parents what they were doing in coming to the
Yes.
UK, new country, new opportunities, and the one thing they've always driven was about self determination, about doing for yourself, and of course that's the real essence and core of Garvey. He talks about self determination. So when you see a lot of disparities, and over the years you see these inherent disparities, and you think, what are we going to do about it? Try and be a difference. Just try and make a difference. So
Yes.
that's what motivates me to do well for myself, my family,
Mhm.
and for the people in our community. So that's really it. It's nothing complex,
No.
but it's about the
Mhm.
doing for me. It's about the doing,
Absolutely.
and that's what drives us to make us a better day for all of us. You know.
Well said, Carlton. Well said. And again, the purpose of these podcasts is to do precisely that. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I may, I'm now going to begin to allude to your book, and the book, of course, which is to be published next year, and you'll give us more details about that, of course, is the race paradox. Okay.
Right.
And the unconscious illusion of inclusion. I must say, when I got that, I thought, wow, that was intellectually titillating, as it were. It most certainly was that. That's for sure. So you know me. I'm bound, therefore, to go off and do my research and study and ensure I've understood what is meant by these terms. And I was shocked, despite my age. I was still shocked that I have to ask you this question, and it's alluded to in the intro video. And this is this question to you. Does your book address the query, is it scientific to classify human beings based on race? Is that scientific?
No,
Hmm.
we know that race is a man-made construct.
Indeed.
It is something that someone decided to come up with some time ago, and
Mhm.
the idea was that it was designed to keep people in a particular place of either superiority or inferiority, and to
Mhm.
categorize people. So what race did, it enabled people to justify some of their actions historically, and still
Yes.
with us today,
Yes.
sadly.
Yes. Yes.
So, as I said, so when we think about race is an insidious concept, right? So, it is around design, and it's constructed in a particular way that helps to perpetuate a particular narrative. So,
Mhm.
um, when we think about, you talk about the book, Martin.
Mhm.
I think that's the question you were asking. Is that
Yes. Well,
the question
my
you're asking?
question is really specifically the term race, and you've gone right to the nub of it. It is a man-made concept. There isn't a science. Okay, and I think that's really important. And therefore, this man-made concept, it's a social construct
It's a
based on
social
those.
construct.
There you go. There you are. And it's important for people to keep that in mind as we continue this interview, okay? Because the book, of course, its basic premise, of course, the race paradox is using the terminology, okay? But we're clear that it is a false concept, and therefore this paradox is a result of it is the outcome of the propaganda to control the masses, to divide and rule. So my question to you, and to help the audience better understand the situation here in Britain, can you give the audience a summary of race about the latter day the British Empire, the Commonwealth, and the recent 1960s Race Relations Act of Parliament? Just give us
Oh,
a sort of summary. I know, you know me. I did want to put it in some context so I can get to the
okay,
sub of it. Yeah, give us some
okay.
idea. But I want to ensure that the audience understands this, because these are the term race is used in common parlance. Okay, but as we begin to put it into its correct context, we know it's man-made. We know it's part of a propaganda campaign for social division, therefore controlled by a small group of people. Okay, but what is the situation here in Britain today? Why we still discuss it? Therefore, the latter-day British Empire, the Commonwealth, and of course, in my day, the 1960s Race Relations Act were the
Mhm.
turning point to begin to address the issues head on. Over to you, Carlton.
Okay. So, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, Black and African Caribbean people in the UK have been here for centuries, but we're not a
Indeed.
new phenomenon to the British Isles. So, Black British history,
Hmm.
our histories are inextricably linked. Black British
Well
history is
said.
not just is not a new phenomenon. Having said what I've just said, but in terms of Black people coming into the UK. In droves, everyone keeps referring to the Windrush generation. But we must,
Mm.
point of note, don't forget that there's not been a major world war fought by this country where people from the African subcontinent or the Caribbean or the Asians, South
Indeed.
Asians specifically, have not
Indeed.
fought for this country under the auspices of the Commonwealth.
Hmm.
So let's just contextualize it when we think about the 1960s, and I maybe I
Hmm.
could just take it on a journey. But when I think about my parents, right? So my
Yes.
parents came
Yes.
to the UK in the 1960s.
Hmm.
So everyone refers to the Windrush post the Second World War and the demise of the British economy, the infrastructure they needed, and there was a shortage of people. So what they did, they went back to the so-called colonies and said, right, we want people to come. You are British citizens, therefore come to Britain and help us rebuild our capacity. That was the word. Obviously, they talk about the
Can I ask you just
1948.
to pause there for a moment? Because you again, those you made a series of statements there which are so
Mhm.
critical. Um,
Right.
my parents, your parents, were born British.
Yes.
Yep. Despite living
And
in Jamaica and the Caribbean, if you were part of the Commonwealth, you were born British. So they arrived here in Britain as Britons. Yep.
as, as part
Go
of
ahead.
as part of the former colonial empire,
There
absolutely.
you
So
go. There you go.
so they had they were British. They had rights of passage, as it were, to
There you
come
go.
here.
Yes.
Having uh, well, I don't want to go to the economics of it,
Mhm,
but clearly,
mhm.
the transatlantic slave trade was, and the British Industrial Revolution was founded upon colonization and slavery, and obviously the
That's
sugar
right.
industry was part of that whole process, right? So,
That's right. Yes.
and when the cessation of slavery and the reparations given to those former slave masters was the foundations of the Industrial Revolution in Britain. That
Mm-hmm.
being said, moving forward,
Yes.
um, 1960. Let's go back to the 1960s. 1948. Of
Yes.
course, we know about the Windrush. People came across,
Hmm.
and they wanted to, they were working in the healthcare sector. The stories that we are told and we are aware of, the healthcare, construction, transportation, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But 1962, when I think about my mother, when she comes to the UK,
Mm-hmm.
looking for opportunities, because interesting enough, Britain used to send trade missions out to the Caribbean
That's right.
and ask people to come to the UK. And interesting
That's right.
enough, Enoch Powell,
Yes.
Rivers of Blood,
Yes.
the most spiteful, insidious speech ever known, racial speech given in this country, as far as I can determine,
Mm-hmm.
was one of those people who went out to recruit people from the
That's
Caribbean,
correct.
which
That's
is ironic.
correct.
Anyway,
Can you imagine? I think it's there's a certain generation who may not remember Enoch Powell, but those of our generations most certainly remember him as being someone whose speech, the so-called Rivers of Blood
Rivers of Blood.
speech, was
Yeah.
such an awful testament to British politicians. It is beyond the pale. But yet he was one of those ministers who went out to the Caribbean, went out to Jamaica, most certainly, and encouraged Jamaicans and others to come to Britain because there are the unfilled job vacancies that, if it were not filled, would undermine Britain's economic development. Can you imagine?
Absolutely.
There you are. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Martin,
Go ahead.
those took place. But so 1962, and I think about my mother coming to this country and my father coming to this country, getting a job. There was a thing back, and remember, bearing in mind, Martin, 1962, 1963. This is within lots of people's lifetimes, not
Indeed.
that many years ago,
Mhm.
that there was a thing called the colour bar in the
That's right.
UK,
That's right.
which means it was okay to discriminate against other people. If I wanted to go to the pub with you, Martin, and have a pint of Guinness
Mm.
and have a chat about life and what's going on in the world and relax after
Mhm.
work,
Mhm.
you and I would have to go into the back room of the pub, and we couldn't go to the front room of the pub with our white colleagues. That was part of what the society was that existed.
And
In
again, if I may, just give that parallel, because I know that we often look at the United States of America, particularly the southern states of America, okay, and we see segregation in that part of America, and we think of them, how awful that was. No, my namesake, Martin Luther King, of course, came out of that. But yet, here in Britain, the very same experience was being had by people of African heritage. Go ahead, Carlton.
Martin,
Mm.
I'll
Mhm.
just take you on that particular journey. But that was
Mhm.
that was just going to in the pub, but that also extended to the workplace.
Indeed.
So
Mhm.
so you and I could go for a job, and someone could say, actually, I don't want to recruit black or brown people.
That's
That
right.
could happen, and in fact, when we talk about, we've just come through, not that I'm an advocate for Black History Month in terms of the month itself, because Black
Mhm.
History is more than just a month. But that
Absolutely.
aside, it exists, right? It exists. And 1963. Sorry, let's go back to America first and foremost. Black
Mhm.
History Month. We talk about often people like you mentioned Martin Luther King, but often
Mhm.
people refer to things like Rosa Parks and the Montgomery
Yes.
bus
Yes.
strike and the fact that they boycotted the buses in 1963. We had
Yes.
the Bristol boycott in the
Yes.
UK.
That's right.
61 years ago,
Yes.
black men could not get jobs on buses in the UK. Could not get a
Yes.
bus.
That's right.
Couldn't get a job on a bus.
Yes.
Interesting. They also had a boycott, and it was known as the Bristol boycott, and it was Prince Brown, Roy Hackett. Um,
Mhm.
they formed a strike, and they
Mm.
boycotted the buses in Bristol,
Yes. Yes.
similar to Rosa Parks. But people don't know that necessarily,
That's
that
right.
level of our history in
That's
the
right.
UK.
Yep.
Because
There's
because what we've got to
parallels.
remember is that,
Mhm.
so we need to
Mhm.
understand that, our histories, whilst different from America in history, there are overtones of things that are absolutely very similar
Indeed.
to what took place in America. So we had the Bristol bus boycott, Prince Brown, Roy Hackett. Now they boycotted the buses until the Bristol bus company relented. But simultaneously, there were other things going on within the country,
Yes.
and then we had the Race Relations Act of 1964 coming through. But
Correct.
prior to that point, the Bristol boycott, at the end of that, the day they stopped and they relented and they said, okay, they succumbed. We think that we no longer can do this, and we are now able to employ black and brown people. And in fact, the first conductor they employed was a chap called Mr. Singh. I can't remember his first name. They employed him. The day that the Bristol boycott relented was the same day that Martin Luther King gave his speech that I Have a Dream on the
Ah,
same
now
day.
that I didn't know. Thank you for telling us. Right.
So they relented.
Mhm.
Black people were able to get jobs on the Bristol, but that was through force of
Yes.
rebellion,
Mhm.
saying this is, we can't accept this. It affected them both economically and politically and socially. The
Mhm.
The Bristol bus company at that juncture. So that was employment. We had the colour bar in general terms. But if we think
Yes.
about housing, I mean, I know we had the same old tropes about on back then when you wanted to get a house to rent because you didn't have a mortgage at that time. But when you first
Mhm.
arrived, you just wanted to find some accommodation somewhere to live. So back then they would put signs up on the front of houses and say room for rent, but they would caveat that by saying that sadly no blacks, no Irish, no dogs,
Can you
and,
imagine?
and that
Oh.
and so that's what was in the so
Mhm.
it was very overt
Mhm.
then.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing, when I talk about this race paradox, let me fast forward 60 years later, 2023.
Okay.
So 1963, on the window, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. You cannot come and get a room or an apartment in this particular block or this particular house. But in 2023, last year, um, there's a platform called today where people want to look for rooms or flats. There's a platform called My Spare Room.
Yes. Yes.
My Spare Room. And there's a report published in 2023 called the Generation Rent Report. And you can find, so I always
Yes.
think it's important that you have data because data underpins the narrative. So I'm telling you this
Absolutely.
stuff, right? But the data's out
Yes.
there, right? So
Yes.
2023, the Generation Report went to My Spare Room, and there were 200 landlords,
Mhm.
and they created two artificial intelligence avatars of two females, both age 26, both female, both professional workers, one black, one white.
Okay.
They sent off their application to 200 landlords
Right.
requesting, um, you know, they want to come and view the rooms, or I'm looking to occupy this particular flat or apartment, whatever it might be. But what the research, and they sent them off electronically to the same landlords simultaneously. The only difference that the landlord could see, was their faces.
Okay.
In terms of the
Right.
age, they're both age 26. They're both professionals. They're both working. But one was black with an afro kind of hairstyle. The other one was a white female with blonde hair. But the black person had a 36% more negative response in terms of accessibility to those opportunities. And what they did, they captured the responses, so you know what was said. So Martin, if you were the blonde-haired lady, it said,
Mhm.
Martin, hello, Lily, or whatever her name was. When would you like to come and view the room? Right.
Right. Yes.
In
Yes.
contrast, the other lady, the black female, said, "Oh, the room's just been taken." So this was this type of feedback. So why am I referring to this? Because you got 60. I think society likes to think that we have moved on. We're on a post-colonial area. we don't see how dare they how describe it. Oh, race doesn't exist. We've moved on. We're a very tolerant society. But what we're seeing in real terms, um, and I caveat what I say. This is not everybody, but what the data tells us in society as a large, there are still race is still an issue. It's a socially constructed phenomenon, but it's still an issue that black and brown people are treated in lots of different categories of different to their white counterparts. And the evidence is there for that. Whether we think about education, whether we think about recruitment, if we think about senior leadership teams in organizations, there's still not today one black CEO of a FTSE 100 company in the UK. Still today.
Wow.
And the FTSE 100 is the top 100 organizations in the UK. It's not because of the lack of talent, because that's really not the issue here, or capability, because there are lots of CEOs globally around the world which are of African, Caribbean descent or Asian descent.
Absolutely. Yes.
And they run multinational, multi-billion-pound businesses. So we know that's not the issue. When we think about wealth, there's a disparity in wealth. We are more likely as African, Caribbean diaspora to be in poverty. 1 in 5, 1 in 4 of our children may be defined as being in poverty. Our educational outcomes, our attainment gaps are different. Now, it's not because we're not talented individuals, clever individuals. One of the youngest professors ever in the history of this country, Jason Ardy, is a young black man.
That's
so
right.
it doesn't. So this is the challenges are the point I'm really making here. The challenges are still there, but also we have to recognise there's also opportunities there as well. So I caveat that whilst we can talk about some of the challenges, it's important that we also describe and discuss the opportunities and things that we can do differently, right?
Absolutely. And thank you for that overview. And it's a very stark overview, but I know that there are quite a number of my traditional English, Scotch, Irish and Welsh friends who will imply that we are in a post-race Britain, at least imply. I smile and I appreciate them because I know that their heart it's in the right place. But if only they realise the truth. Okay. And bearing in mind and taking on board what you've described as the true situation, one could infer that you wouldn't have a President-elect Donald Trump if you didn't have Obama. Would you? Before I go to my other question, is there a correlation between the two? Is there a correlation? I wonder. I don't know if there's. Would you consider there to be a correlation?
Sorry, a correlation in terms of what? Sorry, Martin.
In terms of we now have a Trump second term. Okay, and is that a reaction to the obvious changes, demographic changes that is occurring in the United States of America? So his slogan, "Make America Great Again," is that to allude to a time in which no other persons had rights and it was all white, or not? Or would I be reading far too much into this?
American politics for me is very complex because
yes, at least. But so is English and British politics. But anyway,
that is also true. That is also true. But I can't see. I don't know if there's a correlation between UK, Britain. I think there is in terms of what happens in America. America sneezes, we catch a cold. I think that's the expression they use, right?
Yes.
So, in other words, what happens in America does have an impact on the UK. Now, in recent history, I suppose we can talk about that in this context, is post the murder of George Floyd, lots of organizations in America and globally said, we think this is a tragic act. This is terrible. We can see the gravity of race and how people are being treated, and therefore we're going to come up with all these sums of money to try and redress some of this imbalance and invest in diversity programs or investment in Black communities or Asian communities, etc. And what we found, sadly, is there was a real, not sadly what we found, but there was an uptick in jobs around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and people wanted to support it. But what we've then sadly found is 3 to 4 years later that some of the money and the commitments that were made back then to
Yes.
deliver programs to support those specific communities, what they described in the very beginning, haven't happened in
Right.
some
Yes.
cases, or the level of
Yes.
expenditure or funding hasn't happened. But
Yes.
equally so,
Yes.
the people that they created these jobs for
Okay.
in this space, as in, I want you to make you a global diversity lead, or I want you to be this particular job to keep on, to keep us in check, so we understand what's going on, so we don't make the same mistakes of the past. Some of those jobs, and a lot of large corporates are removing those roles because they
Yes.
no longer see maybe the appetite that they thought they had, because from a public relations perspective was very important,
Indeed.
and the
Yes.
PR, but subsequently maybe it's economically don't think it's sufficient or viable enough or important enough. I'm not quite sure. So there is a disconnect. I mean, and some of these large, big corporate jobs in America have now gone in diversity, and I think I can't. I think her surname was McVeigh in the UK. She was a minister.
Yes.
She said,
McVeigh. Yes.
um, and she said in recent history under the last government that we shouldn't, anything that is labelled, and I'm paraphrasing here, so if I got it slightly wrong, forgive me. But what she did say is that anything, diversity jobs, this type of thing, we need to get back to common sense management, and these jobs should not really exist, essentially.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what that really
Wow.
says to me, so, and that may be a lead from America, I'm not quite sure. But what I'm really saying here is the importance that people put on race as a
Yes.
construct, or the lack
Yes.
of, or they don't
Yes.
see it as an issue.
Right.
Now the data
Yes.
tells us it's still an issue. But
Absolutely.
there's so many people in, whether it's the Federation of Small Business who've done a report says that race is still an issue in business. The Sir John Parker Review report talks about um, leadership within
Indeed.
the UK is an
I
issue.
I wonder if I may,
The NatWest
Carlton.
report, the Lloyd's Bank, all of these people are saying this is still an issue.
Yes. Yeah. Let me. In fact, you're kind of leading to my next question, and it's interesting. We're getting there now. Numerous British institutions have been independently judged to be institutionally racist, such as the London's Metropolitan Police, for example, the British Army, the NHS, and the Snowy White Peaks report by Roger Klein in 2014, which clearly outlined the impact racism has on the lack of diversity in leadership. But more importantly, and more recently here in Southwark, the Maternity Commission, which we had the leaders here, investigated maternal death disparity and morbidity disparity between different communities. How will your book support these institutions in addressing the scourge of racism?
It's a really interesting question, Martin. Look, uh, until when I think about an organisation, so
Mm,
let's be clear. There is structural and systemic racism. It exists,
yes.
right? There's lots of reports what might try to debunk that notion that it doesn't exist. But if you look at the data, and it tells us that in whether it's in education, recruitment, employment, wealth, poverty, healthcare outcomes, Black and ethnic minority groups tend to be at the lower end of the scale in
Mm-hmm,
terms of outcomes.
mm-hmm.
Now, if that is consistent across the board, there must be something that is driving that.
Okay.
So that's what I'm suggesting, as far as that's concerned, right?
Mhm.
Now, how? So let's think about an organization just as a starting point, right? So when I think about uh, recruitment is a good example of that, right? There's when I talk about data, and I think, as I always say, data underpins the narrative, right? So you and I could be highly qualified, Martin. We could send our CVs in, and my name might be, uh, uh, I don't know, Nkrumah.
Indeed.
I'm going to say my name is Kwame Nkrumah, which,
Mhm.
as we know, is the founding father of Ghana, right?
Absolutely.
So I send my CV in, but there's also John Smith who sends
Yes.
an equivalent CV in to 200 employers. The same CV effectively in terms of experience, expertise, you know, stability in jobs, education, qualification, outcomes, all of that stuff is the same. But we're sending two separate CVs with two separate different names. One is a Eurocentric sounding name, John Smith, versus Kwame Nkrumah, as an
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
The data tells us that Nkrumah response rate, he has to send 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times more CVs to get the
Hmm.
same level of responses to John Smith.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's something that is not quite right there. What is that?
Okay.
If my name is Khan
Hmm.
versus Snow,
Hmm.
similar things happen. So the outcomes are similar. So that tells us that there's something not quite right.
Okay.
So when I sit around the boardroom, or if I'm sitting in HR in an organization and I want to recruit someone, and there are 10 of us or in that department, and we're filtering those CVs out. We're looking at whether they're filtered through AI now or whatever. But let's
Hmm.
say they come in and you look at the CVs, or in fact now you've got people in front of you. You're interviewing them.
Okay.
Now you have to remember that the person that you're in front of will have their own individual biases. I've got my biases. Listen, I support Arsenal. If I see a Spurs supporter on a Saturday afternoon and we're playing, I'm not really. My brother-in-law's a Spurs guy. I'm
There
not,
you go.
I dislike him at that moment in time. I'm disliking this guy. My sons are Man United supporters.
Oh yeah.
We have our so. So I have my inherent biases. I don't want to hear
Yes.
anything about Man United. I don't want to hear about Spurs. I'm not
Indeed.
interested because I've got my own biases, right? And in organisations, that's also true.
Mm.
People have their own values and beliefs about whatever they have. So if I'm going to make a decision, Martin, about something, there are different things going on. Let me give you a good example of that. So if you and I work together for the last 3 or 4 years, we're in the same organizations. We may go out socially together. We sit in
Mm.
meetings together. Over time, we start to have similar views, similar ways of
Mhm.
thinking,
Mhm.
and we have this homogenization of how we think and how we view the world. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, we see this guy coming in the door. Hmm, I don't think that person's quite right, Martin. What do you think? No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
because we have things such as what we call beauty bias, we like to
Yes.
look at people, affinity bias, people that look like us, we have more affinity with. But also, there's a thing called group thinking, right? Over
Mhm.
time, people start to, you know what, I tell you what, I'll go along with you, Martin. I call it go along to get along. I don't want to upset
Indeed.
their status quo here.
Yeah.
Uh, if you think that's the case, and 3 or 4 of my colleagues thinks that's the case, they may already have their own inherent biases.
Yes.
But I'm going to go along. You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, yeah. And we don't. So what happens over time? So this homogenization, this level of group thinking, the affinities and biases are kicking in.
Yes.
But the other thing is, Martin, there's a thing called confirmation bias.
Mhm.
Now, if you think about it, right? So if you many years ago, I can remember, I love football, right? But many years ago, there used to be in the '70s. There was and I read some articles about football managers who used to think black players we can't recruit black players because they don't like the cold.
There you go. Yes.
They don't take the cold.
I recall this as
And
well. Yes.
and they were considered lazy.
Mm,
Um, so those old tropes and stereotypes, what that meant at the time, people wouldn't recruit black players
right.
because they considered them to be lazy, or they maybe not be educated. So in organizations, when you come to recruit, this is the kind of stereotype or something in your psyche that may still well exist. And all what needs to happen, we'll talk about confirmation bias now in this context. So someone comes in and he or she may not be a great worker, as an example. They might actually be lazy in that context. And all you've done now is confirmed a predisposition that you already thought, these people are really lazy. Oh, we can't.
That's right.
Remember, we had John 10 years ago. He was a
That's
really
right.
lazy guy, right? So you're confirming the notion. Therefore, going forward, when you think about
Yes.
recruitment, you've reconfirmed in your own mind that these type of people, these are kind of lazy. Therefore, we shouldn't recruit them. So look, you need to have people in leadership. You need to have people in leadership positions
Hmm.
that are diverse in terms of
Yes.
both gender and race
Yes.
to bring something
Yes.
more balanced to the party. But if we continue to have homogenized groups, that makes that process more difficult to have,
Okay.
that conversation to have. And recruitment, whether it be recruitment or promotion or supplier diversity, it makes things difficult to move it forward.
Okay.
Going back
What
to
you've
your
just
answer
yeah,
to your question, how does a book
yes.
solve the problem?
Yes. Well,
So
at least
I went around
provide
the house
support.
copy.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So look, Martin. Look, it's easy to kind of say, look, these are all the challenges, right?
Yep.
They're all the challenges. They exist. They're real.
Hmm.
They're out there. That's for sure. They do exist. But we must also look for solutions in all of this stuff.
Yes.
But whether that's education, and I think that's part of it, educating organizations about how they do things, and the structures and systems that they may well have,
Hmm.
changing mindsets and values and
Yes.
beliefs.
Yes.
So I think about, let's take this recruitment issue as a good example, right?
Right.
So Kwame Nkrumah goes back to Kwame again. Um, let's say Kwame and John Smith both send CVs in, but this time they don't put their names on it,
Ah.
as an example.
Right. Yes.
So the CVs are blind, let's say, right? So you don't know who they are. So your evaluation process on these two candidates are based on what you see in front of you.
Yes.
Now, you now grant both.
Don't wait. Go ahead. Don't wait. We're here.
So you now grant both these two candidates, unknown who they are to you,
Hmm.
into the offices to come for an interview. Kwame Nkrumah and John Smith.
Yes.
But whilst in that interview, if we recognize that organizations sometimes have inherent biases, and we all have those, um, and there's a homogenized group of people doing the interviews, why not actually say, let's try and have a group of people doing the interviews that are multicultural and multi-gendered and are
Yes.
diverse in the
Yes.
true sense of the word, right? So
Right.
Martin interviews someone else, around that table, you've got a different group of people who will have different perspectives and will see different things. And I
Hmm.
think, therefore, you'll get a more balanced view in terms of recruitment. So that's one example of doing
Okay.
something slightly different
Okay. Okay.
in terms of recruitment. But if
Right.
I think about the pathway about leadership, because I think leadership is so important to all of this, right?
Yes.
Um, because you could advocate for something, but is it intentional or is it performative? Do I tick the boxes? Am I saying, yeah, this is really good? We've got a corporate social responsibility policy. We've had some diversity training. Yeah, we're pretty good at this stuff. We celebrate Black History Month. We celebrate
Hmm.
Pride and Women International Month. And we do all
Yes.
of these
Yes.
things. But that's cosmetic stuff.
Yes.
That's fine doing it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But what we also need to recognize is, are we moving the dial? Are things really changing within the business itself? Last year, and listen, I caveat everything I say here, Martin, is that you should always try and judge people on merit. That's what you
Indeed.
should do.
Indeed.
right? It should be it should be a meritocracy. But if you're not allowing people in the room to start with, how can it be a meritocracy?
Quite.
Because you're excluding the talent. You're excluding part of the talent pool, whether that's based on gender or based on race. You need to have people around coming into the workforce and give them access to the opportunities. And that's what you're all. I think any organisation should do is to, for me, going back to my football, I want the best football team. I don't care where you come from. If you're playing for Arsenal and you're talented and you can
Yeah,
make us win,
yeah,
help us
yes.
to win, that's what should
We've got to
happen.
win.
We want
Yes,
to win, right?
yes.
And I think organisations should want to win in what inverted commas. What does that look like for an organisation wanting to win? Whether that's delivering more sales, more profit, more growth, innovation, more structure. Whatever that looks like for your. But you need to open up the talent pool to identify
Absolutely.
all of the
Yes.
talent and not just some of the talent.
Right, right.
Right. So
Okay,
that's the challenge for me.
okay.
So that's recruitment. So and the other one side of that coin is where do you buy from? Where do you
Ah,
buy your products or
okay.
services from?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know. Let's say you said you're in Southwark.
Mm-hmm. Based in
Um,
London. Yep, in
Southwark
Southwark. Yep.
you're based in Southwark.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say an organisation in Southwark. Let's say you know local offices. You're getting catering in occasionally for various meetings. Coffees, tea, sandwiches, lunch, or whatever. Occasionally get them in for your guests for meetings. You're a multicultural region of London.
Yes.
So
Yes.
who supplies your catering to? As an example, I'm just giving that. You know,
Really good one. Yes.
is it possible to not always to get a bit of some sandwiches, or why not?
Mm-hmm.
Could we get the odd bit of jerk chicken now and again into the
Mm-hmm.
pot? Or if
Mm-hmm.
we're having cooked lunches, could we have a different type of meal coming in,
Mm-hmm.
provided by a diverse supplier? But
Yes.
often the diverse supplier would have difficulty getting access
Mm-hmm.
into the supply chain.
Indeed. Indeed. Yep.
Therefore, my ability to grow as an entrepreneur, right? I want to grow my business, but one of the easiest ways to grow, not easiest, but one of the ways you can help to grow your business is to get access to bigger opportunities
Yes.
and have sustainable contracts within those spaces.
Correct.
So whether that's a local council offices or a big corporate organisation in that space, but getting access to that is difficult in the first instance. And what we know in the public sector, a good example of that, um, public sector, £290 billion per annum is spent in public procurement. Is a good example, right?
Yep.
Black and ethnic minorities make up 7% of the SMEs, small medium enterprises in the UK, but less than 0.1% of that expenditure is spent with black and ethnic minority businesses. So that tells me that there's a challenge there, just by the number. We make
Yes.
up 7% of the business community, but less than
Yep.
0.1% of the £290 billion is spent within that community. So
Yes.
I would be saying to those organisations, how can you change that?
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's morally the right thing to do, but actually, again, it's opening up access to the best talent pool.
Mm.
And having access to all of the talent pool that can bring innovation and difference to what you're looking for. And sometimes, there might be cost savings to be met or efficiencies to be gained by doing so. So I think there are, I've just talked about recruitment as an example that we talk about it in the book. We talk about leadership teams need to be different, and we think about access to the supply chain. So there are things organizations can do, but they must be intentional. You
Mm.
know, the book is titled "The Race Paradox: Why Organizations Fail on Race."
Mm-hmm.
Because I think and my definition of the race paradox is that I describe it as this unconscious illusion of inclusion.
Yes. Yes.
This
Yes.
unconscious illusion of inclusion. So you can tick all the boxes for what and say we're doing all of these great things.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really an illusion that at the end of it, when we think about the real change, tangible change in your business, in your
Yes.
organization, Is it really changing?
Okay. It's such a well crafted title, I have to say, and as I said, it was intellectually stimulating, titillating, as it were. One is forced to inquire, and the stats you've just quoted are profound stats which I'm very familiar with, most certainly on the economic side. It's always been a wonder, even in my own borough. It's always been a wonder, and we are pretty forward thinking, pretty, we're right on the edge of being innovative. There's no doubt about it, but we still
Mm.
struggle. We still struggle. And I want to, in fact, if I may, I'm going to, if you don't mind taking a few phone calls, if the audience wishes to
No.
call in. If that's okay. Okay. I'm going to put on the screen now the phone number you can call if you wish to put a question to Dr. Carlton Brown. And the number to dial, it's 0208, if you're in the UK, 0208 133 5616. Okay, welcome your questions. And if I may, Carlton, you said a lot there, and it's a picture that many of us will recognise. But I wonder, in your book, what weighting do you give to education and deprogramming, as it were? There was a radio station I was formerly linked to, Galaxy Radio, which has one of its motto, the de-brainwashing station. Okay, are these traditional English, Scotch, Irish, Welsh communities the victim of another group within their communities programming? Okay, and if they are, how do we help them to deprogram?
Mark, Mark, look, there was a guy called he's considered the godfather of public relations.
Okay,
A chap called Edward Bernays. Right.
okay,
Actually, he's the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Right.
okay,
And
right.
what he says, and I think is really interesting. If you tell people things often enough and regularly enough, it
Yes,
becomes a truth.
indeed,
It
indeed.
becomes believable.
That's
And he's
right.
also the one what says that when you talk, you tell people you tell people in things series of threes. So
Mhm.
in other words, get Brexit done, right?
That's
Or
right. Yes, that's right.
protect the NHS. So he was the guy that
Yes.
came up with that stuff around marketing and public relations many years ago.
Mm.
So I think what's happened over time, the stories have been repeated over time, and people are
Yes.
hearing this repeatedly over and over again. This community is like this, this
Hmm.
community is like that. Now bearing in
Yes.
mind, Martin, we've got to think about it in context of the UK.
Yes.
Now I think ethnic minorities make up 12, 13, 14% of the UK population, and the
Very
black
much.
African Caribbean diaspora make up about 4% of the
Yes.
population.
Yeah.
So you've got 87, 86% of the population that are not considered ethnic minorities, black or
Indeed.
Asian,
Yes.
So the vast majority, but there's a perception
It's been
of
overwhelmed.
who we are
Yes. Yeah.
consistently over time.
Yes.
So something is continued to be repeated. It becomes into people's psyche. So you talk about education and people's belief systems. So they've got this information from somewhere, whether that's the media,
Hmm.
and we live in a society today which is 24/7, right? 24/7 media. You know,
Indeed. Yes.
it's on your phone, it's everywhere. You're getting images and perceptions about who we are, and we know that the images or perceptions often in media are often portrayed very differently for people of color
Yes.
versus other communities.
Yes.
And I go back to football again. I remember the media depiction of Raheem Sterling as a good example, buying his
Mm.
mother a house
That's right.
for 2 million or whatever it was.
Mm.
He's become a young, successful footballer and says, you know what, my mum has supported me all this time and I'm going to look after my mother. And I think that's commendable. And similarly, there was another young football player in the same club who also decided to buy his mother a house, which was also commendable. The only distinction was one was black and one was white. But the narratives which were being perpetuated were very different for the two individuals.
Yes.
And we see this in lots of
Time again.
examples. So what
Yes.
I'm saying is education is critical. Education is critical to debunk some of the myths, and I think that's really important, that we do educate organizations and the leaders and the people within those organizations about. But they also have to want to be different
What
and
to
challenge
change?
themselves. Now,
Yes.
I had a
Yes.
conversation to change. I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and he wanted some advice. He said, Carlton, this is what's happened to me in my recent history. He says, I work in the company. I've been there for 18 months. I've been in sales and I've been the top sales guy for this organization since I've been there. But we'd go to the pub after an exhibition with the team, and the managing director would give me his credit card and say, go and get the drinks. So he's the only black individual in the organization. I hasten to that. And every time he wanted to get someone to go and get drinks, he would give this one individual his card to go. And he's there. And he said, hold on a second, why am I doing this? Why am I the only person? And then he said, well, there's another example. He said, Carlton, I was also, he said, we got a bit merry one night after one of these trade shows he was at. And he said, I was leaning over on a bench. I thinking, oh, my head's a bit dizzy at the moment. I'm leaning over. And the same one of his managers came over and said, oh, the way you're positioned yourself, you look like a gorilla.
Oh.
And so this is one organization. And then he gave me three examples. Those were two. He said, you look like a gorilla. And the other one was someone had cut themselves in the business. And he said, oh, my arm turned black. He said, almost as black as you.
Okay.
So this is one individual. And he was literally, he said, I've been, I've been in various spaces over time and these things have happened. I try and bury my head and just focus on what I'm supposed to be doing. But he said, so I've decided to, he was telling me he's decided to leave this company. He said, but these are just some of the examples, he said, what have happened to me. And these are described as, he reported it to the HR, and they described them as microaggressions, but you can dress it up as what you want. But, but the language and the way people behave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I understand, and what I want to do here is really get to the nub of this, of course, because clearly we describe racism. Okay, it's the ability of one group of people to work collectively against the interest of another group of people by use of their positions of power. Okay, but of course, the vast majority of English, Scotch, Irish people that I encounter are not powerful. They've got very little power as such. Okay, it's usually those who are the leaders. That's where the problem appears to be. I mentioned in my question to you the report, the Roger Klein report on the NHS, on the lily white mountaintops in the NHS. In each of the organisations, it was all white. Yes, you've got blacks and others underneath, but at the very top where the real decisions are taken, crucial decisions are taken, it was lily white. It occurred in many institutions across the country. The NHS is just one example, but because the report was such a profound report and its implication was profound, I think that's why it resonates with me at this time. Okay. I suppose I'm wanting to ask you, in terms of your book, in terms of providing practical advice and guidance to the readers, to the institution, to what focus do you give to training and encouraging leaders of organisations or as leader aspirants to take a far more objective, liberal view, if I may, in relation to race and understanding the detrimental impact it can have on their organisation, both in terms of the quality of service delivery, or if you're in a company, it could ultimately undermine your your bottom line, your profit, if you are seen to exhibit racist tendencies in your leadership. How well does your book address the question of leaders and their impact on the wider organization?
Look, so listen, leadership is key, right? To all of
Indeed.
this, I believe, because I think leaders drive culture and organization culture in a business, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and as I said, I call it the paradox, the race
Mhm.
paradox, for a reason, because I think that there is this, and sadly, this unconscious this unconscious illusion of inclusion, where
Indeed.
people think that they're doing all the right things, and in real terms, they're not. And leadership has to be the driving force behind it. Has to be, because they dictate the culture, the way people behave, the way people think, and they're the driving force behind all of this. So we talk
Yes,
about that in the book, and we talk about education, and they need, and education is important, but having awareness about something and being aware of something and doing something about it are two entirely different things. So
indeed.
it's really important that organizations think and become really intentional. And I think things like, how do you measure? Because there's an old school adage, what gets measured gets done. If you
Absolutely.
don't
Yes.
measure something in your business, and you don't listen, when I was in the boardroom in my old business, and I used to hear, let's have a look at the sales. How do we do against this last month, against this month, against our budgets, against our targets, this quarter versus last quarter, against last year? If we don't measure it and organizations don't see it, I think it will just continue to be what it is. It will just be this
Agreed.
challenge, and things won't necessarily change going forward, right? Um, um, so that's the first thing. Secondly, I think so. Education is a critical part of that component, um, to drive the change that is necessary, to make it happen. Measuring it, taking stock of it, but being intentional and not performative. And I
Yes.
think
Yes.
often a lot of this is performative. We want to, I go back to the beginning, celebrating Black History Month is one thing, celebrating Pride, celebrating Women's International Day, they're all great, it's all nice. But what does the structure of your business look like? You know,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
have to want to change yourself. You need to have that cultural intelligence, and you
Yes.
have to go out and
Yes.
speak to people, go
Yes.
out,
Yes.
go to conferences, immerse yourself. I mean, there was a guy many years ago called Sir John Harvey Jones. Many years ago, he said,
Oh,
"Look,"
yes. I remember. Hmm.
he used to talk about management by walking around. Go out into the business world, speak to people, speak to your employees, understand what really is happening, and find out for yourself what is are things being effective or not within your business,
Yes.
and if not,
Yes.
change it. But you have a
Absolutely.
responsibility to change, right? And the McGregor Baroness McGregor report in 2017 said that by not having a fully inclusive Black and ethnic minority community within the workplace has a potential to have a £24 billion gap deficit in those businesses.
Absolutely. Say that again, Carlton. You just say slowly, because it needs to be heard. As you say, it's got to be repeated to understand the economic impact of racism. Say again, please.
So, in the Baroness McGregor report in
Hmm.
2017, she said that
Hmm.
by not having more Black and ethnic minority people within businesses, within organizations, can have a significant economic impact to the tune of 24 billion.
There you go.
Now,
Yes.
that's one. But here's the other one. From a business perspective,
Mm.
Black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs
Yes.
today
Yes.
contribute £25 billion towards GDP in the UK today.
Yes.
Black and
Yes.
ethnic minorities businesses contribute
Yes.
25 billion GDP towards the GDP in the UK today. Now, Professor Rhonda Ram, in his recent report, this might be 18 months, 2 years ago, said that whilst there's a £25 billion contribution today, it has the opportunity to become a
Hmm.
£100 billion growth
That's
by
right.
looking at Black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs in the UK.
Yes.
So what am I saying here?
Hmm.
The opportunity for greater contribution to the economy,
Yes.
the UK economy, which we all benefit from,
Yep.
and GDP,
Good for
potential for
Great
growth.
Britain PLC. Yes. Hmm.
Yes. But equally so, the other side of that coin is we are
Hmm.
consumers.
Indeed. Yes.
We spend a lot of money, and we have. Uh, um, so, in terms of if I'm a retailer, as an example, we also have to recognise that people want to do business with people who care about them.
Indeed.
If you are, and there's some stats there. I think it was the Black Pound report, which written by Lydia Amoa,
Hmm.
Amwa, sorry, Lydia Amwa, and she talks about the black consumer and the black pound and how much that's
Hmm.
worth, and
Hmm.
to organisations. But one of the things that I remember reading her report, she said that um, black and ethnic minority consumers or black consumers like to see organisations that are promoting and see advertising that people that look like themselves.
Absolutely. Yes. Natural, isn't
So,
it?
so,
Yes.
so there's an economic impact both
Hmm.
to what you are doing as a
Hmm.
as a business, the benefit from. There's a benefit of economic impact into UK PLC
Hmm.
as well. So that there is a real substantive, but also bear in mind of this: if you're a black or ethnic minority, you're 8 to 12% more likely to be more innovative than other communities. So, in other words, if
Oh,
I'm coming
say
to
that
your business,
again. Again. Oh, hold on. You say these gems with, as a matter of fact. Say that again. What do you mean by more innovative? Please say more.
yeah. So innovation means that you come up with ideas, so
Hmm. Hmm.
you're likely to be more creative, between 8 and
Hmm.
12% more likely to have bring innovation into the party, right?
Hmm.
If you think about technology and
Hmm.
innovation,
Hmm.
most companies, what they look for is the next best thing, whether that's the next best car, the next best clothing line, whatever it might be,
Yes.
innovation.
Yes.
Now, if
Yes.
you're bringing groups of people who are likely to bring more innovation into your business,
Yes.
ultimately what that will lead to, it gives you as a business what we describe as a competitive advantage.
There you go. Yes.
So you have talent or expertise or something that is coming into your organization
Hmm.
that is going to allow you to be different and give you an edge compared to someone else. So that is extremely important to your
Yes.
business.
Yes.
So when you think about recruitment, you shouldn't just be looking at recruitment and say, "Oh, actually, if I can bring the best talent in, that's what you should be doing. Full stop." I always talk about a meritocracy. You
Hmm.
should operate a meritocracy, but have the whole talent pool available, not just some of the talent pool.
Okay.
Uh, and I think that's really important. So, but what we do know, Martin, where organisations work with more diverse groups of people, we
Yes.
know the data tells us this, that we see improvements in performance, productivity, profitability. So it just makes good business sense, not just because it's morally the right thing to do, but also it's good for your business.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I don't think you should just do things for the sake of doing it. If it's going to help you to become more productive, and at the same time it makes good commercial sense, and it's morally right, well, that's got to be a great win all over.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I thought I should close now. I could talk to you all day, but oh my dear. Anyway, there are other duties. But how can, first of all, the book? Could you confirm when they is to be out and how we can pre-order, and how, if a member of the audience wants to contact you, by what method is best for you? Please
Okay.
go ahead.
So the book is called
Oh,
The
did we
Race
lose?
Paradox.
Oh,
Why
forgive me,
organize
Carlton. Can you just say that one more time? I think we may have lost you for a moment. Say again.
okay. The book is called The Race Paradox:
Okay. Hmm.
Why Organizations Fail on Race.
Right.
Now you can pre-order the book now. You can go to the publishers, which is Jacaranda Books. Now Jacaranda Books, for those who don't know, is the largest black book publisher in the UK.
Hmm.
Jacaranda Books. You can also go to Amazon and pre-order, um, and also you could also go on to um, the BBEC. the Black Business Entrepreneur Conference website, theBBEC.com website, and the link for the book is also there. So there's 3 places: Amazon.
Yep.
.com.
Yes.
You can also
Jacaranda.
purchase it on Jacaranda Books for
Yep.
pre-order, and also you can go on theBBEC.com, which is the Black Business Entrepreneur Conference website, and you can also, there's a link in there to make a purchase as well for pre-order.
Excellent. Excellent. What I'll do, I'll put a link to each of these sites on the if you're on YouTube or Facebook in the comment section, so you'll see those links as well. And I'll also, of course, give light to it in future podcasts. That's perfect. How can they contact you if they want to take advantage of what is a wealth of knowledge?
So again, there's a contact form on www.
Yes.
Aspire, ASPIRE, -consultancy.com.
Yes, that's you. Okay, perfect. Again, I'll put that in the comments as well, so it's all clear to those who listen. Thank you. This has truly been an interesting. Well, I say interesting. In one hand, it's very depressing that we still have this discussion. Okay, but on the other hand, you could see change. Change is there. It is visible. Yeah, it's tangible, and if we are consistent in our desire for this change, so that we have a Britain that is truly a meritocracy. Okay, one that lives up to its stated aspirations, ambitions. Britain is a great place, but it's an even better place for us to live, for our families and our children's children. Okay, I believe that's the right tone. Would you agree, Dr. Carlton?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Martin, well, I've talked about the challenges, but there are also some great opportunities, and there are lots of people from the African and Caribbean diaspora doing extremely well, but there needs to be a lot more of it. And the other side of that coin, we also have to, despite the challenges, we've continued to thrive and prosper, and we need to go out and continue to be more self-determined, as Garvey would say, and make sure we go out and do it for ourselves.
Well said, well said. I'm going to just do this for you. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. More of this, more of this, more of this. Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah, there we go. They're getting up there. It's all flowing for you now. It's still flowing for you. There you are. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's the energy. You feel the energy now. You can feel that energy. Thank you, Dr. Carlton Brown. I look forward to your book. Continue with your works. You just tell us in your next event, you give us the details, and we'll continue to promote your work. Your contribution to the community. You're one of those, if I may say so, unsung heroes, you know, whose contribution is second to none. Long may you continue. I extend our regards for you, good health, to your family and all those around you. Thank you very much for appearing today. Good day to you. Good day. Wow.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Goodbye. Goodbye. There you are. In fact, let me just alter the scene, shall we? Here we go. Back to my original scene, and we'll get rid of that in a second. Now, I've got to say, people, as you heard him speak, what was clear is that here we go. Let's get that right. Oh, I'll take my total cameras out now. Here we go. What is clear? Oh, I got that right. Get the camera right. What is clear is that we are the change makers. You know, we decide what the future has in store for us. Okay, it is our future. We decide the future. If you wish to be depressed, oppressed, downcast and constantly complaining, do so. That's fine. But if you want to be strong and upstanding, if you want to effect the changes that are meaningful and that will benefit your family and our children's children, all children, regardless of their ethnicity, This is the path to take. Be the change maker we know you are. And if you're in doubt, hold hands with others so you gain a bit of their strength so they empower you and you empower them to go further to make Britain an even better society for all. We not judge, as my namesake would have said, by the colour of your skin, but you're judged by the content of your character. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. And I must say, Dr. Carlton Brown is again one of those unsung heroes. Thank you for those listening ears. Thank you for those listening ears. As I mentioned earlier on, tomorrow is Remembrance Sunday. At our last transmission, we had Zach Robinson of the West India Regiment Heritage Trust, an organisation that intends to put the record straight, put it right, okay, ensuring that those heroes and heroines from the Commonwealth who served and died, gave the highest price in the World War, are remembered. Yeah, I commend the work of this organisation. So normally I would lead out with the intro video, which is the theme of today's show. On this occasion, as it is Remembrance Sunday tomorrow, okay, what I wish to do, the intro video I'm going to use is one I used the last transmission, in which we had members of these armed forces present who were able to speak in profound terms about their experience in the armed forces and the necessity of us being in the armed forces. I want to honour them and play their video. And I ask you a request that you not turn away now, that you watch and listen and learn. Because these men and women, many gave their lives, the highest price they could ever pay. Thousands of African heritage and Asian heritage, men and women died in previous wars to defend this country and indeed countries like this. Even despite the tremendous difficulties here, recognizing the evil that the Nazis presented in the last wars, the fascists presented in the last war. They fought valiantly, and we should not forget them. Here you are. Until the next song, I remain the Motivator. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. It is up to us to keep their stories alive. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Remembrance Weekend, November 2023. Remembrance Sunday is a national opportunity to remember the service and sacrifice of all those that have defended our freedom and protected our way of life. The day and events surrounding it remembers the armed forces and their families from Britain and the Commonwealth and acknowledges the vital role played by the emergency services and those who have lost their lives because of conflict or terrorism. Last year, the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust representatives attended the Greater London Authority's Remembrance Service at City Hall and marched alongside other veterans in the Remembrance Parade at the Cenotaph. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Remembrance Weekend, November 2024. In 1980, the West Indian contingents were permitted to march together regardless of their regiment. They will march alongside other veterans in the Remembrance Parade at the Cenotaph this year. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Our core mission is to remember, honour and commemorate the contribution and sacrifices of the West India Regiment and their modern-day descendants. We promote West Indian military heritage for public benefit through commemorative events, education and research. The British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Increasing the number and visibility of black veterans in United Kingdom military commemorative events to highlight the continuous service and sacrifices made by people of Caribbean and West Indian heritage in support of British interest around the globe. The British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Curating flag-bearing and wreath-laying ceremonies, where West Indians are buried in Commonwealth War Graves Commission sites and other cemeteries around the world. These graves stand as a permanent and emblematic reminder of the 15,600 West Indians who travelled from the West Indies to fight for freedom in the world wars, many of whom did not return. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Encouraging and supporting serving personnel and veterans of West Indian heritage to continue the tradition of attending military commemorative events established by our World War II veterans. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Assisting serving West Indian heritage personnel in transitioning from the armed forces as they return to civilian life. The British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Heroes and Heroines Roll Call. Marcus Bailey, born in Barbados and living in Liverpool when he joined the Royal Navy in 1916 as an able seaman on HMS Chester. The British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Heroes and Heroines Roll Call. Samuel Wesley Yearwood of Port of Spain, Trinidad, worked as an aircraft mechanic, and it is known that Sergeant William Robinson Clark of Kingston, Jamaica, flew biplanes over the Western Front in the summer of 1917. The British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Heroes and heroines roll call. Roy Manley enlisted with his brother, Norman Manley, destined to be elected Prime Minister of Jamaica. They, in 1915, enlisted with the Royal Field Artillery at Deptford in London, one of the many black troops from the former British West Indies who fought on the Somme and elsewhere. Roy Manley was killed in 1917. Rest in peace. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Heroes and heroines roll call. Herbert Morris was buried in Belgium Poppering's new military cemetery. Almost 90 years later, on the 8th of November 2006, he was pardoned, along with 300 other soldiers who were executed for desertion and other offences during the First World War. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Heroes and heroines roll call. Sam Manning was born in about 1898 in Trinidad. He worked as a chauffeur and jockey in Trinidad and British Guyana before travelling to London and enlisting in the Middlesex Regiment during World War I. He then served in the British West India Regiment in France and the Middle East. British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Honour and respect. Reclaim the narrative. Join the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust. Website address www.birht.org. Telephone number UK 07956 100 089. Email address info@birht.org. You are most welcome. The Motivator Show. Success is ours for the taking.